Strip coming up flat in at number 2 by Cal Rodley right now with 8.4-second lead here on the field. That's got a long run. Get that big push. Hardy right now running it up for the 4 spot.
You ever have one of those days where you just come up short?
It was at this moment that he knew. He fucked up.
Ever wish you had a little more power down low?
It was at this moment that he knew. He fucked up.
Well, I have an answer for you. Dirty Asset Engine Repair Service. No matter how dirty it is or how broken it is, Dirty Asset Engine Services has a solution for you. Using the latest cutting-edge tools, there's nothing they can't handle. From a simple cleaning and inspection to a full-blown engine rehab. For more information, hit the link down below. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that little bit of B-roll and nice shiny clean motor. We are actually in real time now. And we're gonna take a look at the motor as it came out of the buggy from last weekend's race. I am gonna warn you that I'm a little bit under the weather, not feeling super great right now. So if there's a lack of enthusiasm, my apologies. What I kind of want to do in this video is just detail the Reds 521 Sport and what my experience has been with it. And I'm gonna do so while breaking down the motor so that we can take a look at what it looks like after it's had probably about 3 gallons on it. Possible interruptions coming through. My kiddo's working on his car and he needs my help every 5 seconds, and wifey might be coming through as well along with the pups. So I'm gonna do my best to filter everything out. Let's go ahead and take a look at where she's at right now. I'm not sure how well this is gonna come through, but you can see all the clay and dirt and everything still on there. I think you guys have already seen that picture. That's too close, probably too close for the camera. That thing got absolutely annihilated. It was my own fault. The clutch belt was pinging at the beginning of the second qualifier, and it was super important for me to get through that qualifier, so I just kind of sent it, which would end up being a huge mistake. The bearings ended up going bad in it, and pull it off. I've already pulled this off to look at it to inspect the clutch. The bearings ended up going bad. Both of them completely blew out. I think one went and then the other one completely went. Like, there was no bearing left. So the only thing that was holding this guy in place was, get some better light here. The only thing that was holding this thing in place was when the clutch shoes were tightening up. And if we can, maybe I'll take some better pictures of it, but with it being so loose, it just shredded. I never even made the second qualifier. So it was DNF City last Sunday. That's why there's no video from the races. I broke a complete record of DNFing every single race that I raced in. After the second qualifier of buggy, I went ahead and pulled out of the race entirely. I was pretty much done with that buggy at that point. And then I moved forward onto the Truggy A-main, and probably got about 12 or 13 laps into it, and I guess it's what appeared to be a broken rear left something on the buggy, and the marshal called me off as if the buggy was the Truggy was completely dead. And so I just kind of packed it up and went out to grab the truck. And as I'm walking back in, I don't see anything wrong with it. and I get it back to the pits, and come to find out it was just one of the links popped off and could have very easily been popped back into place. So that ended my day. I hung out and pitted, ran the pits for a buddy of mine, and yeah, that was kind of my experience for the day. Those days are tough in RC when you go through and you can't finish a full race, but you just got to get through it. So what we're going to do is break this down, and I'm going to kind of talk about my experience with the 521, how I've gotten to where I am with this motor, kind of talk about the positives in the front side, and then go more into the negatives on the back side. So I'm going to try and cut out as much of the screwdriver turning as I can. All right, now where was I? The positives. Positives of the motor, first and foremost, price point. The motor, I keep saying motor. Positives of the engine. The price point has to be the biggest positive that's out there. These are going for roughly, I think, $325 with the pipe. Don't quote me on the pricing, it could be less. So it looks like the pricing has gone up a little bit since I purchased. I think I purchased the pipe and the engine for roughly right around $325 out the door shipped, I think. It appears that the combo is actually going for right around $360 right now, and I'm currently running the EFRA 2143 pipe. I don't have the torque tune pipe. I've been pretty happy with this, how it sits. Smooth power delivery all the way through. It's pretty linear. Does have a little more down low than it does up top. These, from what I've seen and heard, these they're not high RPM engines, but they do deliver quite a bit of power through the mid and through the low end. So I'm gonna go ahead and pull that off. Nothing crazy exciting to see there. Pipe needs to get cleaned. We're not going to pull these because these are brand new. These are still the factory springs that are on here, and the only thing that I did change was the rubber grommet that's in there, and these springs have held up pretty well. Nice and tight. Doesn't want to wiggle around and make you guess whether or not you got an air leak somewhere. It's been pretty solid. Also, ooh, we do have a split here. If you guys can see that or not, we do have a split that needs to get taken care of. So when I put this back together, we need to go ahead and get that cleared out. Put a new piece of rubber on there. We're just going to go ahead and pull it now. That is not the right thing. This one will work. I'm going to go ahead and get that capped off. I'm going to go ahead and brush this out real quick and kind of get some of this loose stuff off before I pull the carb and the rest of it apart. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and hit this with some cleaner before I pull it the rest of the way apart. Some cleaner and some air. I'm just not real comfortable pulling. There's just too much dirt and grime that's kind of stuck in here. So I will be right back. Alright, so now we're all cleaned up. All the clay is for the most part gone. So a couple things that I want to do here. I want to put this engine at TDC, and we're going to take some measurements here in a little bit. First thing I'm going to do is crack this guy. Oh my god, why is that in there so tight? Holy sh! I can't believe that was that tight. Okay, so back to what I was saying. I want to put this at TDC before I pull the clutch out. Okay, and you'll know you're at TDC. Wow, there's the plug is loose. That's why there's no compression. You'll know you're at TDC because you're rocking back and forth. If I pull it off that way, it'll be free all the way up and down. Come into it, and you'll feel it click. And that right in between, right there, is where you want to be at for TDC. Now there's a reason I'm doing this, and that is we're getting ready to pull his head and take a look at these shims. When I got this motor, when I got this engine, it was shimmed at 0.51. I took, I don't know how many different measurements, but the average of all of them came out to 0.51 for the top of the for TDC on the piston, top of the piston to the bottom of the button. And so let me back up here a little bit. I'm getting a little bit all over the place. I got too much going on today. When I first got the motor, it came with a T4 plug, which I had to assume at that point in time that the T4 plug was for break-in, so that you could have it a little bit, you know, running a little bit on the fatter side and keep it running. And when I purchased, I believe I purchased from A-Main, and the recommended plug that A-Main had was a P3. Now, I personally don't know why that was the recommended plug, like literally on the same page. But it was very confusing because most of the guys that I race with run OS engines, and a few of them run Reds engines, and a very common plug for us to run here in Florida, is a P3 Ultra Hot. And me, being somewhat new, got the advice that, oh no, you need to be running a P3 Ultra Hot. So I bought the P3 Ultra Hot because A-Main recommended it, and it was also being recommended through the grapevine. And during the break-in, I used the break-in plug, and I'm pretty sure that even through the first race, because I wanted to see how long I could get out of that plug, I just went ahead and ran the T4, and engine ran great. The break-in was like super easy, held a tune, no problem. And came out of the race. Did flame out a few times if I remember correctly, but that probably had to do with temperature and me not knowing exactly what I'm doing with the tune. It also could have been the stock Techno clutch. Forgot where it was. Had some flame outs, but that had to do with inexperience and the temperature that we were running in. When I first ran it, it was in the truck, and it was making great power. It was doing everything I needed it to. I was still running off the stock clutch shoes, and as soon as that T4 plug went, and it's crazy that I didn't really realize this, and it took me quite some time to realize. As soon as that T4 plug went and I put the P4 plug or the P3 plug in it, as soon as that T4 plug ended up going bad and I put the P3 plug in it, that's when I started having a multitude of tuning problems. I was running 25% nitro at the time, and I think I had just made the switch at that race because I forgot my fuel to 30% nitro. If I remember correctly, it was Dean's All Out, and I got all the way to the race, which is roughly about a 4.5 hour drive away, and had completely forgotten my fuel. Which ended up being a blessing because it got me to reach out to Dean, meet the track owner, and then beg him for some fuel. So he ended up giving me some Nitro Pro 30%, enough to get through the race, and boy did I have some problems getting a tune down. It got to the point where in order to keep the engine running, I had to have it super lean on the bottom end, and I mean like so lean that the engine would sound like it was just almost like it was running away. Otherwise it would have a 2-stage idle that would drop so low that it would immediately flame out. And no matter what I did, no matter what the guy I was running with did tuning wise, we would get it tuned on the box, it would be fine. I would go out for practice laps before the qualifier, and it would just immediately start flaming out. So a couple of things to consider with this engine. Box tune is nowhere near race tune. And when I say nowhere near, I mean absolutely nowhere near. I don't care what temperature you get it up to on the box. It's not even close. Like you can't even. It's not even. I'll get it in the ballpark. It's just not even close. Second thing is, and what I started talking about before I, broke all of that down, and when I started having issues, is that I thought I had done something to the engine from running it too lean, and when it came to the very next race, I started reaching out to other guys who were running the Reds motors, and they had basically told me the same thing. Can't get the thing to idle right. Tune is super finicky, and at this point it's starting to warm up temperature wise. So on the track, I'm starting to see, after a run, obviously the bottom end's lean. After a run, I'm starting to see like 290. One time I think I pulled it off at over 300 degrees. So that was the last time that I ran this engine in a race. I believe it was at Sundancers. Because I was just too concerned about temps. I was too concerned, and when I say warmer, I mean it was probably 85 degrees outside, next to no humidity. So I pulled it out of the race lineup and basically started dinking around with the other nitro engine, the Dynamite, and started that whole series up so that I could try to learn a little bit and get a little more understanding of compression, race temps, tuning in our crazy different humidity levels here in Florida and temperature levels, because in March in Florida, which is the middle of race season for us, it can get down to 45-50 degrees at night with no humidity. And then in the middle of the day, the morning, your tune in the morning is going to be completely different from your tune midday, and then again completely different from the night tune for the night race. So, and when I say different, I mean vastly different, especially with this engine. OS engines seem to handle it a little bit better. The carbs that come on them seem to be able to at least hold an idle so you're not flaming out. But this guy, for sure, it just didn't it just did not want to hold a tune. And there's a few other people that got turned off by it, and just did away with their engines. So fast forward to I don't know, maybe a month ago, I sent the engine out because I thought maybe that I was having an issue that I just wasn't catching. I had gone through the engine completely, was not having a clutch that was hanging up, didn't have any, you know, what I thought were bad bearings. I didn't see any cracks in the block, nothing. Sent the engine off, had it completely refurbished, had ceramic bearing put in the back of the motor, or new bearing put in the front, just in case, and had the sleeve. I think he repinched it. I could be wrong, but I think he repinched it. I don't know. He put it on the break-in stand and tuned it. And, you know, I got multiple videos showing the engine running perfectly fine for half an hour. And so I said, go ahead and ship it, send it back. I got it back. Exact same thing. Couldn't get it, you know, on the box I could get it tuned perfectly fine. However, when I would go out on the track and get a load on the engine and get it up to race temp, it would immediately start, you know, being sporadic all over the place. You know, high idle, too low of an idle, and I mean, we're talking a minute of difference on the carburetor change. And I just couldn't, you know, high temps, I just couldn't figure it out. And so I reached out to Reds. I didn't want to have to do it, but I reached out to Reds, you know, basically, you know, 3 1/4 in, you know, well, after the service, 5 1/4 into an engine. And the damn thing won't run right, so I'm starting to get irritated. And I reached out to Reds. Turns out Marco got a hold of my questions, and he emailed me directly, wanted to see pictures of the car, where it was set up, wanted pictures of the engine. And at that point, I had asked him the question, what is the stock combustion gap supposed to be in millimeters? And he told me, I've got the email, I'll probably pop the email up. I think he said between 0.55 to 0.6. I could be wrong there, but I'm pretty sure that that's what he said. I'm gonna have to pull it up 1 second. I've got the email chain here somewhere. Yeah, so I was right. It's 0.55 to 0.6 millimeter for the combustion chamber, is what he quoted. And he said to measure it, to take a 1 millimeter piece of solder and put it down in there, and then obviously run the engine through. I did that. I wasn't real comfortable with solder possibly getting down in the engine, because a couple times the solder ended up cutting off. So what I ended up doing was measuring with my calipers, and that's what we're getting ready to do here in just a second. But as soon as I pull this top off, we're gonna see, as soon as I pull this head button off, we're gonna see exactly how many shims I've got in here and what the shim stack that I ended up at was. A little dirt in there, a little dirty. Okay, and you guys can see, I don't know how much of they can see, the beautiful brown tint all the way around, zero distortion on the plug. And I've had this plug, this is a P4, an OS P4 that I've had in here for probably the entire month, from when I actually figured out what the deal was and what was going on. Yeah, this whole thing is gonna have to get cleaned now. So we'll talk about piston and button. So we had 3. Alright, so we just took a measurement. I don't know how much of it was caught. And basically what we're doing is we're measuring from the top of the piston to the deck height here. And that first measurement came out at 3.26. Now we want to take measurements in different spots. We're going to do spot next. And again, we want to rock this to make sure that it's as flat as we can get it. And there's a reason that I'm averaging these. Okay, that one came out at 324. I'll do one more at the back end here. And that one came out at 323. So I'm sure it's me, but the average of those three is going to be right around 3.25. I'll actually calculate it out here in a second. Once we're done taking that measurement, we want to do the same thing here on this. And now, for the most part, Reds keeps a flat button. You're not going to be able to see it, but this whole surface here is pretty flat. So it's not as difficult. I know that the OS motors do not do that. So again, what we want to do is get as flat as we can. We've got 323. Rotate a third of the way. Same thing. We've got 3. See that? 3, 3, 3. So these are all going to be pretty close. Rotate this again. Do it one last time. We're at 328, 329. It's right in between. I'm going to call that 329. And what we want to do is take these numbers that we've got here. We want to add them and divide by 3. What that's going to do is give you an average. So 3.3 plus 3.33 plus 3.29 equals 992. You can do this more than 3 times. It's just that I've got, to get a better average, I've got a good idea of where this needs to be shimmed. We're probably going to pull a shim out of it today, but we'll see. Divided by 3. So we're going to call this 3.3 millimeters on the button. That's the depth. It's the depth of how deep this is from this part to that edge right there. We're gonna do the same thing on the piston, how deep the piston is down and in. So 3.26 plus 3.24 plus 3.23. That's not right. 3.26 plus 3.24 plus 3.23 is 9.73. And then we're going to divide that by 3, and we're going to come up with 3.24. And that is going to be your depth of how far down the piston is to this edge right here in millimeters. And so what we want to do is we want to get the distance between the bottom of here and the top of the piston. And so what we're going to do is we're going to take this number, 3.24, and we're going to minus this number, and we're going to come up with 0.06. So 0.06 means that there's a measurement error somewhere, but it basically means that there is absolutely no gap between TDC and the bottom of the button without any shims. So no shims in here at all. If we go back to measure what my shim gap was, I believe I threw an extra shim in there on purpose to go test it and see what would happen. But we're gonna test that shim gap again. And we're gonna come up with 0.7, somewhere in there. I think it in a couple of different spots. 0.72. So I basically set the gap here between between the bottom of the head button and the piston at, I tried to get as close as I could to 0.7 millimeters. And the reason is there's a rule of thumb for nitro engines, and this again is just a rule of thumb. If you're running 30% nitro, you should have a 0.7 gap between TDC piston and bottom of the button. If you're running 25% nitro, you should be at a 0.6 gap. If you're running 20% nitro, you should be at a 0.5 gap. Now, this is all very, very subjective, going from one motor to the next motor to the next. So when I say that, it can be off as much as, you know, a millimeter or, you know, a millimeter and a half to be where you should be set. And the reason that that is off is because you'll notice that there's a dome in here. There's a gap in here. That gap accounts for a specific amount of volume. I'm not going to try and calculate that today. But as long as we stick to this rule of thumb, if you're having problems with an engine, you can come back to these numbers and it'll get you close. So when I got the engine from factory, we were here. It was actually 0.51 is what I measured. So I was running initially 25% nitro for the break-in with I think it's a T4. It might be a P4 plug that comes from the factory, but I'm pretty sure it's a T4 plug. Now, it's my understanding that the colder the plug, the more fuel that it can handle before it actually flames out. So basically what you're going to see is on, let's say, road cars, for road racing, they run at wide open throttle almost all the time. And because of that, they want to be able to throw a lot of fuel at the specific motor or engine, and therefore they run a colder plug. For off-road racing, we generally run hotter plugs. The most common is going to be the P3 from, let's see if I've got one, from OS. Now other people will swear by other companies' plugs. There's no, you know. So here's a P4. That's the engine that I would, or that's the plug that I would like to run. So I got a few P3s in here. I don't know if you guys will be able to see that. That's a P3. This is a previous plug that was running the motor or the engine. I gotta stop doing that. So we're gonna talk about a few things here. So like I was saying, the engine came at a 0.5 gap, which was already, you know, 5/100ths below what Marco had told me it should have been. So I don't remember what shims it had in it exactly at that point in time. I can't remember. It's too long ago, and I didn't know to measure what was going on. I was at that 0.5, but I was also running 25% nitro, and it was roughly 35 to 55 degrees Fahrenheit outside. So what that means is that it's a lot colder outside. It's easier to run a little bit hotter on the engine. It won't require as much fuel in there to cool it off. And I would imagine that this is the single biggest part of it, is that on that T4 plug, I was able to throw more fuel at it without flaming out, because I saw an immediate difference as soon as I changed the plug. Now, did changing the plug completely fix it? No, it did not. Because by the time I had realized that I was running the wrong plug, I had also switched fuel. So when we go to 30% nitro, you can actually run leaner at lower temps. Cools down the piston and sleeve because of the higher nitro content, and allows you to run a little bit leaner, get a little bit better fuel economy. My specific problem that I was having was the fact that I was running an ultra hot plug. So I was running a P3, and I was running in a combustion chamber size where I should have been running 20% nitro or 25% nitro. So I went up to 30. My combustion, the amount of combustion that was being created in the engine was too high, causing the engine to run hot when I ran the 30%, and I couldn't throw enough fuel at it to cool it down. This is where the 300-degree runs were coming off, and I was trying to do my best to keep the motor running, so it was running lean at the bottom end, and it was just causing an absolute mess. The whole thing, the whole engine was just off. I couldn't get it to hold a tune, because as soon as I would get on the track, throw down a few laps, that engine would get hot. It would need more fuel than what I was providing it, and it just turned into a big mess. So that's when I reached out to Marco, got all the information from the email that I showed you earlier, and additionally, I got some assistance from the Reds team manager for the Southeast, and he flat out told me that this was a big part of my problem. So I immediately switched to a T4 plug, saw a pretty big difference in the way that the engine was running, and I was actually able to tune it and to get it to calm down, so that when I got up to race temp, it wasn't running away on me or having extremely high revs when I come off of a full pull. I wish I had footage to show you guys, but I went through it and I couldn't find it. So basically, if I was coming in for pit, the engine would just sit there and just ping off of, sounded like it was running off rev limiter, and it wouldn't go away. And the minute that I would richen it up to stop it, as soon as I'd get back out on the track, the engine would flame out. Now, on top of that, I had a whole different set of problems, and that was that this engine, when I was originally running it, this engine was in my truggy, and the clutch shoes were completely worn out, and the clutch bell was completely worn out, and so I wasn't getting any kind of grab on throttle. It would just kind of spin and feel real spongy, and that too was also messing with me tune-wise, where I felt like I needed to go leaner to get the engine to produce some more power. It was simply because the clutch was just spinning the whole time. I mean, it was grabbing enough to where it would move the vehicle, but it just wasn't grabbing hard enough to actually lock up and provide solid forward drive. All right, so hopefully that wasn't too too much information. Basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to reset this after we take it apart here in a second. I'm going to pull the clutch off of it. I'm going to change this clutch out. Obviously that clutch bill is toast, but I've just had nothing but problems with the Techno stock clutch from the get-go. And I did find a specific clutch shoe. I'll have to pop it up on the screen. I can't remember exactly what the name of it is, but these clutch shoes are way better than the stock ones. These ones will actually lock up. I had to go to a heavier spring, but the clutch definitely locked up nicely. So let's go ahead and see if I can't pop this sleeve out of here. No, it doesn't want to come out. There's a lot of dirt in there. Oh, yeah, there. Oops. Yeah, it was time for this guy to come apart, but not too bad for 3 gallons on it, I don't think. Let's see what we're looking at here. So she was running a little bit fat, and I knew that. After my runs, I was pulling it off the track at about 250 degrees Fahrenheit. And that's the last race that I went to was literally like 100 degrees out with 60% humidity. It was absolutely ridiculous. A couple of people had to leave because they couldn't handle it anymore. See if I can get a little bit better light in here. You guys can see down in there or not. She's still pretty clean. No major gouges. So we'll get this guy all cleaned back up. But there's that. You guys have already seen the button. Let's get the piston out of here. I do want to get the different backplate. So it would appear that Reds has come out with a, and maybe I'm just late to the show, but Reds has come out with a backplate that has bearings in it that spins freely. And then I know that before they had like an air boost backplate as well. That looked pretty interesting. A couple of people have used it and said that they'd had good results with it. Now, when I sent this in for service the last time to have somebody who really knows what they're doing look at it, they said they had noticed some wear on one side of the conrod. So it wasn't a huge deal, but to definitely keep an eye on it. So it's also part of why I'm getting ready to break this down and clean the whole engine out. And plus, you guys can see there's a bunch of dirt that got down in the side of there. All in all, I've been pretty happy once I got this thing figured out. I've been pretty happy with the engine. Plenty of power. The power to dollar value is out of this world. Yeah, and we can see that there has been some wear on the back plate. And this is why I'm interested in that new back plate that they have out. It does have a nice gold tint to it though. So here's something unique that I'm noticing so far is that I've been running Sidewinder 30% fuel and I'm not getting any red residue so far anywhere. But anyways, we can see where some of that wear is right in here. don't know if that's coming through or not. Get it up a little bit. Let's see where some of that wear is. But the rest of it's actually in pretty decent shape. I really like these backplates, they're really nice. And now for the magic. Get out of there. Okay, so now we're seeing some red residue on here. And that's just from the fuel. But all in all, it actually does not look that bad. And here's where that wear mark is. Let me get the rest of this wiped down. Actually, look at this before I wipe it down. A little bit of darkening here on the where the exhaust port is. Okay, baby. So, Wipey says dinner's ready, so yeah, that stuff just wipe right off. How about that? But as far as the color of the piston goes and the condition it's in, I'm gonna give it an A+ for right now. For having 3 gallons through it, that's not bad at all. Considering probably an entire gallon of that was rough. There is the wear on. Again, I don't know. I will take pictures of this stuff just to make it a little bit clearer. Here's the wear on the con rod. Alright, got a break. I'll be back. Okay. See if we can get any kind of view down in here. As you can see, there is a little bit of staining in there, and it is a little bit dirty. Let me get this flywheel assembly off of here and we'll take a look at the crank. Call it came off, it was kind of loose. That's a little bit concerning. I think it should be that loose. Okay, maybe it wasn't as bad as I thought. Call it still in decent shape. Alright, let's take a look at what we got going on here. There is a little tiny bit of buildup from the fuel. See the spot of it right there. Now it has been almost a week since I ran the engine, but this has definitely taken on a lot of the red, for sure. Clearly nothing modified on the motor. And needs to be cleaned up a little bit, but no major wear, which I'm kind of shocked because those bearings were completely shredded when I pulled them off. I wish I would have gotten pictures. But yeah, crank looks good still, no issues, nothing scraping. Clutch is in a little bit of a rough shape, but this is definitely still usable. Already went through the piston, and now our bearings. Let's kind of check our bearings. Oh, we're still in good shape there. See our ceramic bearings down in there. I mean, everything looks and feels good. Yeah, there's no play at all on that bearing. Same thing with this front bearing. A little bit dirty, but we did get some a little bit of scrapage on there in the front. I don't know if that's from when the clutch fellow assembly actually went, which it shouldn't be doing anything there. Maybe that was there the whole time and I just didn't notice it. I don't know. Alright, we're going to go ahead and get this thing reassembled. I've got everything as clean as I care to have it clean. Probably going to smash the fast forward on this for everybody while I put it back together, and then we'll come back. Alright, so we're going to run 25% at 0.62 or somewhere therein. And hopefully we don't get wild, crazy temps. Okay, so we are what feels like good to go. We need to get the collet and the clutch back on. I'm not going to do that right this second because this clutch isn't going back on. I'm actually going to take the reds off of my Adam Drake motor, and that one is going to go on this one. I'm going to order another Adam Drake, or I'm sorry, another Reds clutch for the Truggy. Hopefully I was able to pass along some helpful information to those that are struggling with the Reds 521. I'm going to go ahead and cut it off here. The video is already close to an hour long. If you got anything valuable out of today's video and you're not subscribed, please hit the subscribe button. It helps the channel a ton. That's going to be it for this one. I will see you in the next one. Yeah. What's up?
It takes everything within one pallet, but we take the sound when I do it.
What?
Is that he? And I used to be when I go.
I am, because I can I can edit it out.